The following is an exclusive presentation of WI Garden Media, the voice of Garden Talk Radio. Coming up on the program today, it's about trap plants and how to water bath can. Our guest is garden expert and TV personality Shirley Bovshow, and we'll answer your garden questions. The hour's jam-packed, so let's start right now.
You are listening to the most informationally packed hour of garden-focused radio in the country and on the internet with your host, husband and wife team Joey and Holly Baird. This is the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show.
Welcome to the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show. I'm your host, Joey Baird. Beside me is my wife, co-host, best friend, and gardening partner,
Holly Baird.
This program is for you, about you, to help your garden grow better, maintain your landscape, grow those trees healthier, and make your grass look greener. Happy you've allowed us to be part of your world for the next hour. If you would like to be part of our world and get a hold of us, you can certainly do that by a couple of avenues. You can send an email to gardentalkradio@gmail.com. That's gardentalkradio@gmail.com. Or if you'd like to talk to us in person, you can certainly do that by sending us giving us a phone call at 1-800-927-SHOW. That's 1-800-927-7469. If we can't get to you, leave a message. We will call you back with the situation, the answer to your problem. Big show lined up, so let's get into it. We're going to talk about, to begin with, trap plants. What is a trap plant, Holly?
A trap plant or a trap crop is a plant that attracts agricultural pests usually, or any sort of pest in your backyard or wherever your garden is.
The bad ones.
The bad ones, usually, those are insects typically. And it moves them away from nearby crops. And it's a companion planting ideal because it's something that you plant next to the other plant to help your plant, essentially. And it keeps the main crop hopefully safer.
So you're purposely planting a trap crop or a crop knowing it's going to get destroyed in order to protect the crop that you want to save or not be tampered with.
Right. That's exactly it. You are planting that plant, that crop, what have you, to purposely have the issue.
So what are some things we need to understand about or do to make this work correctly?
Well, the biggest thing is, this is also at times called integrated pest management. So if you've ever heard that, I don't know where you would have heard that, but in case you have, that's what it's also called. So what you want to do is you might have to do some research. So if you have, say you have squash bugs or something of the sort, a lot of times people will plant blue Hubbard squash because that type of squash apparently attracts the bad bugs.
Okay.
So say we don't have a lot of pest issues, but say you have...
People do.
People do. Other people do. So say you have something even just like cutworms, you could try to plant extra plants ahead of time, and then hopefully those cutworms or roly-polies would not destroy the seedlings that you want. So you have to do your research, and then you also have to plant ahead of time. So that way, a lot of the times, like if it's something like the squash vine borer, you would plant that blue Hubbard ahead of time. It would attract the squash vine borer, and then by, like where we are, by the mid-June, it's done.
So it can be called trap crops or intercropping or companion planting to a certain degree on what you're looking at or searching for. And when we're talking about intercropping or essentially companion planting, it's not that, you plant the basil next to the tomatoes and the basil gets sweet or anything like that. It's for the instance of like the squash bug you were talking about. You put basil or dill or something of a very fragrant fragrance around it to confuse the insects that typically attack those particular types of plants.
That's more of a companion planting. The trap crop is actually done to trap the bad bugs and to keep them away from your other plants.
Actually have the bugs come on the plant, feast on the plant, die on the plant, put eggs on the plant, whatever, to protect the plants, the zucchini, the tomato, whatever it is.
Right. And a lot of times this is done with organic, agricultural, like a larger scale.
We're not using even organic chemicals in the application. as organic can be without any type of synthetic or organic means of bug control.
Right. And so this is where a lot of the research comes in. It's to, reduce labor, frustration, plant devastation, and it's to increase harvest yield. So say, again, the squash vine borer, that's a good example. If you were trying to grow a lot of zucchini or...
Let's go with zucchini.
Okay, so you might grow this blue Hubbard squash to attract... Apparently, the blue Hubbard squash is tasty to the squash vine borer, or it's inviting because it puts the squash vine borer puts its larva into the stem of the squash plant, so it distracts that. So then, say you have squash bugs, okay. So then you plant this blue Hubbard again. It's attractive to a lot of squash problems, squash pests, whatever. The thing is that if you plant these other trap plants, you should still destroy the bugs you find on them.
Okay, so you're not just letting nature go. If you see them, a whole leaf full of eggs underneath, you want to get rid of it. You don't want to just, it's on the trap plant. It's not a big deal.
No, you don't. Yeah, exactly. So you want to make sure you remove them so that you're not, so eventually it might be like, oh, this plant's done. Let me go feast on the non-trap plant.
So if we've talked a lot about the Hubbard squash and the zucchini aspect, but when we find a plant that is going to attract insects or bugs that are devastating other crops in which we are growing, what is the planting scenario? Are we planting that trap plant right next to it, or miles away, or feet away, or yards away, or what are we doing on that?
If you have the space, you would want to put it about 8 feet away. So you're planting, again, you're starting these plants, growing them, encouraging them a couple weeks before your other plants. So if you have this issue, if you have a pest that always comes back every year, you have that plant established, and typically at that point, since it's away from the other crops, once it's been established and it's attracting the bad bugs, the other plants should be fine.
Well, for example, like people will plant radishes in near spinach because spinach is typically a crop that attracts or leaf miners will get in and destroy or very heavily damage the leaf structure. So the radish leaves are inviting to them, so they go and destroy those leaves. The bulb still produces, leaves the luscious spinach leaves alone, so you can eat them. That's another example of what a trap crop would be.
Yeah, for sure. So that would be something that you would keep by the spinach. So
right. And they're both cool with their crops, so they would work well together.
Right. And a lot of larger agricultural scales will use tomato plants because tomato plants because they're more fragrant essentially. They'll attract the bad bugs faster than the bad bugs going to other plants.
Well, and stinging nettles, that's not something you want to be careful if you're going to do that, but you would include that in to attract the aphids off of other plants. And realistically, a trap plant can be a weed. We have found and seen that lamb quarters attracts aphids and leaves the vegetables in which we're growing absolutely alone. And the lamb's quarter is 4 or 5 foot tall and completely loaded down with the aphids. And we don't touch that plant; we let it be.
Right. So there's like accidental trap crops.
So you, as we were saying, that you're supposed to destroy the insects as you see them getting on the plant. With that aphid situation, we didn't. We just left things alone because we figured if we would have disturbed it or got rid of it, we would have had the introduction of there wouldn't have been any host plant for those things to live off of. Right. So take it for what it's worth there.
Well, aphids, a ton of aphids is harder to destroy than like 7 squash bugs.
Well, true.
Yeah.
So trap plants, if you've never heard of that term, now you have, and you can kind of plan ahead for next year if you've had devastating effects with insects destroying your crop. So sacrificial some plants in order to get a harvest in which you desperately want or is trying to make happen. Well, another thing in which you can make happen is getting your everything but the meat items from Walton's Incorporated, spices, tools, and everything in between.
Yeah, the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show is brought to you today by our sponsor, Walton's Inc. you like to know where your food comes from, like your canning your vegetables, preserving your fruits. That's great. But the meat, if you go to waltonsinc.com, they have all the equipment, seasoning, and supplies to make sausage, jerky, any other meat product your way to your high standards. If you want to make some tasty snack sticks or jerky, you can go to meatgistics.com, an informational site to help you make the best finished product. Walton's even has a full line of their own grinders, mixers, sausage stuffers to help you go from animal to edible. Walton's is everything but the meat. That's waltonsinc.com or meatgistics.com.
Farmer, rancher, hunter, fisherman, or if you're none of those and you just need some good seasoning and spices, Walton's has that as well. That's waltonsincorporated.com. Well, do not go anywhere. When we come back, have you ever water bath canned? Holly's going to walk us through a verbal demonstration on how to properly water bath your vegetables that's coming out of your garden. You're listening to the Garden with Joey and Holly radio show.
Got a question for Joey and Holly? Send it via email anytime to gardentalkradio@gmail.com.
We here at the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show Gardens understand that healthy soil is the key to a successful garden. We know that chemical fertilizer burns carbon out of the soil and kills the microbes needed for a healthy soil ecosystem. No worries. Chicken Soup for the Soil by Dr. Jim's will stimulate life into your soil, supplying all the nutrients most fertilizers neglect. Rather than force-feeding water-soluble chemical fertilizer, we suggest feeding the microbes a smorgasbord of 100% biodegradable nutrients that your plants can consume when they need them. The nutrients are readily available to maximize their genetic potential. Chicken Soup for the Soil will increase the quality of the fruit and vegetables you grow. Visit drjims.com. That's drjimz.com. With the right tools, plant maintenance is easy and more effective. Ironwood Tool Company has the right tools for your project. From pruners to loppers to saws and shears and cleanup tools, get the right tool for this season, making your job much easier. Find them all at ironwoodtools.com. Rinse Kit, pressurized water on the go. No pumping, no battery, simply fill from your spigot or sink on the way out for up to 5 minutes of spray time. Anywhere, live dirty, rinse clean with Rinse Kit. Tired of dealing with bugs but don't want to use harmful chemicals to repel them? Naturally Green, No More Bugs is all natural and plant-based. No more chemical bug repellent. Use it around your home and on you, indoors and out. DEET-free and will not stain. Repels mosquitoes, ticks, fleas, roaches, ants, flies, and more. No More Bugs is the answer to what is bugging you. Stop using harmful chemicals and use what is safe for you, your family, pets, and the environment. For more information, visit natgreenproducts.com. natgreenproducts.com. Brought to you by Blue Ribbon Organics, providing locally made organic compost and soil blends for gardens, farms, landscaping, and more. Visit blueribbonorganics.com or call 262-497-8539 to find their products nearest you. The Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show is brought to you by the following: Simply Earth, Seed Savers Exchange, Quick Snap Sprinklers, Water Hoop, Timber Pro Coatings, Bloomin' Easy Plants, Pomona Universal Pectin, Ivy Organics, Tiger Torch, Happy Leaf LED, Seedlink. Find all sponsors at the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com and thank them for their support. Welcome back to the Garden with Joey and Holly radio show. Thank you for allowing us to be part of your day. Well, we are in the month of August, and even though most of the bigger portions of the growing season is starting to go on the downward slope, August can be a very hot and dry month, and we are experiencing much of that across the country. Tree Diaper can help hydrate those plants very easily.
Yeah. How do you water your trees? You likely drag a hose over to it, let the hose run for about a half an hour, maybe longer, and go do something else. You need to stop doing that.
And forget about it overnight?
Right. Well, I hope not, but you need to stop doing that. Increase your watering efficiency and save money with Tree Diaper. No hoses to drag around constantly. Tree Diaper is a revolutionary watering system. It slowly releases stored rainwater when trees need it. The Tree Diaper is filled with water from rain or when you water, and slowly releases water over 3 weeks. Tree Diaper will improve the way you water your plants Every time it rains, Tree Diaper recharges. It's made in the USA. You can find all the sizes they have available at treediaper.com. That's treediaper.com.
Well, Holly, many people are getting ready to can what they're harvesting, or they're getting great deals at farmers markets, and they're going to water bath can most likely. So what we're going to do is we're going to verbally walk through a water bath procedure, what you should and shouldn't do and what you should be looking for so you can do it right. Now, we have many videos on our parent website, the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. At the top of the page, you just search for Canning What You Grow. We've got 50 of them there on multiple different topics. So we're going to walk through some of the things that you should know and do. And when it comes to water bath canning or pressure canning, explain what both of those are. And most people, we would recommend starting with the water bath procedure until we get the hang of what we're doing.
I think, yeah, definitely you want to start with water bath canning just to learn the canning process, essentially. So water bath canning is for high acid foods or low acid foods that have the addition of acid or sugar. So something like you wouldn't water bath can carrots themselves, but you could water bath can pickled carrots. Or, so for example, you wouldn't water bath can
corn,
but you may water bath can corn salsa,
right,
which has the addition of acid like a vinegar or lemon juice and salt. Or well, most fruit is pretty high. You wouldn't have to necessarily pressure can fruit, but fruit has that high sugar content. So that's kind of the difference. So the biggest thing you want to keep in mind is always follow a trusted resource recipe. We've been getting a lot of questions in lately about, I have this recipe that I got from a random YouTube video. Is it safe? This happened. Is that okay? And I'm not going to tell you it's okay because I follow safe canning methods. So yeah, you want to use a resource such as the National Center for Home Food Preservation, Ball Canning, Better Homes and Gardens. If you have a university extension or you have a master canner who provided you a recipe, all of those are good. So water bath canning is simply the act of submerging jars in boiling water and canning them. That's what,
right.
It's called water bath canning or boiling water canning. So the first thing you want to do is obviously have something to water bath can. If you're like, I'm not sure if I want to commit to buying a canner, if you have a stock pot that's fairly deep and you want to, even if you just try pints, as long as you have an inch or two of water above the top of those pints, you could use like a deep stock pot.
And that's, you want that water at the beginning procedure to be that 1 to 2 inches above whatever size jar you're using. And
you need a lid.
And you need a lid. And
right.
Not all jars are safe to can with. And you would think, well, why would Ball make jars if you can't can with them? Speaking about the 64 ounce or the half-gallon jar.
Oh yeah. So yeah, you can only can in safely in quarts, pint, half pint, 4 ounce. What is it? Half a cup.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. So yeah.
I mean, you can. What is it? Grape juice and apple juice.
That's it.
In the half-gallon jar. That's it. That's
right.
Yeah.
But you would need a big can.
Correct.
Because half-gallon jars are quite tall. So aside from that, I'm just going to stick to the nitty-gritty here. Right. And again, the National Center for Home Food Preservation is a great resource about safe canning. So you want to make sure you have your water bath can or whatever you're going to use. And then you want to read your entire recipe. You might get your recipe, okay, I'm going to make this. And then all of a sudden you realize you have to let something soak for 3 hours or overnight. So that's what you want to make sure you have all the ingredients on hand. And you want to make sure you read that recipe for the process. And then you want to check your jars. Your jars, especially maybe if this is your first time canning and your best friend's mom gave you a bunch of jars. She's like, oh, you're going to can? And you're like, yeah. And she's used them a bajillion times. You want to check the top to make sure there's no dents in the top of the jar. You want to make sure there's no cracks in the jar. Something that might look funny. You want to make sure they're actually canning jars.
Right. Not all glass jars are created for canning purposes.
Yeah, a lot of times like an old mayonnaise jar, something might get stuck
for people who don't realize that back in the day, mayonnaise used to come in a glass jar, not a plastic squeeze bottle.
Right. Exactly. So, mayonnaise jars, whatever. So you want to make sure you use a true canning mason jar. So you want to check your jars. Then you want to clean them. However you clean them, you use your dishwasher or whatever. You want to keep them warm. So we keep ours in the oven. Some people put theirs in the dishwasher under like the warm setting, whatever that is. So yeah, or some people put them in their canner until they're ready. But we found keeping them in the oven on the lowest temperature is what works best for us. Then you want to fill your jars. So the recipe will say fill to leave this much headspace, and that's the difference between the top of the jar to whatever is in your jar. So if you got jam, you want to usually use like a 1/4 inch headspace. You can buy a tool called a headspace measurer, and then you measure the top between the jam and the top of the jar, that 1/2 inch. So you're going to fill your jar, leave your headspace, and then you're going to wipe the top of the rim off to make sure there's no food or water or whatever. You put your lid on, and then you put your ring on, and then you finger tighten it. You don't want to tighten it like the Hulk. You want to finger tighten it, and then you put it into your canner, and then you do this until all of your jars are full and your canner is full, and then...
And while you're doing this, you've got the canner in the process of warming up.
Yeah.
And it may be a boiling, it may be a rolling boil by the time you're getting your jars in or not. And when does the time, if it says process for 20 minutes, when does that timer start?
You want to start the timer once you have all the jars in and it's a true roaring boil. You know it's a roaring boil because if you were to stir that pot, the boil would not be disturbed.
Okay.
So you want to put them in there, and then you time it. You want to put your lid on the canner, and then you time it, whatever the time is, if it's 5 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. And then you want to, when they're done, you can pull them out. You can wait a few minutes if you want. Like if that's the only thing you're canning, you can turn your canner off and wait a few minutes. Otherwise, you can just pull them out. If you're doing pickles, like pickled cucumbers, you want to pull them out right away. That'll prevent mushy pickles. And then you put them on like a dish towel, whatever you have, but you don't want to put them directly on a counter or table. You want to put down a towel or something.
Now, we have experienced jar breaking every now and then. What is, two things before we get out of this segment. Why would a jar break? And two, why would a jar not seal properly?
Sure. So sometimes jars just don't seal. There's no necessarily a reason. You might just have a faulty lid. It might just not have happened. It's a pressure thing. You need that pressure.
Or you didn't clean it properly.
Or you didn't clean it properly, right. So that's reason one. Reason two why a jar might break is, again, just might be the pressure of the whole thing. Otherwise, if you take a cold jar and put it in the hot water with hot stuff in it, it's going to break.
We've done that a couple of times. We've learned from our mistake there. So, water bath canning, if you've got questions, certainly you can send us, Holly, an email at gardentalkradio@gmail.com. You can go to our parent website, the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com, and search for Canning What You Grow. And we walk through very detailed steps on how to can many of your common items. Well, Holly, summer's in full swing now, and fall is in the front of the windshield and spring is in the rear, but it doesn't matter because those Japanese beetles are here and they're going to stay as long as they possibly can.
Yeah, if you're looking to successfully control those beetles without damaging the environment, look no further than Beetle Gone from Phylum Bioproducts. It's derived from naturally occurring soil bacteria. Beetle Gone is the only organic solution that successfully controls beetle invaders. You just mix the powder with water and spray it on your plants. Once ingested, the targeted pest will stop feeding and die. And since it's an organic BT product, you know it's a great choice to use on your fruits and vegetables in addition to your ornamental flowers and shrubs and trees.
Not only does Beetle Gone work, what the best part of it is, it's not, it doesn't hurt beneficial insects like ladybugs, butterflies, or bees. It's safe for all of them and has zero water toxicity. That's Beetle Gone from PhylumBioproducts.com. Have you checked them out? That's PHYLLOM bioproducts.com. Well, hang around. Don't go anywhere. Garden expert, TV personality, Shirley Bovshow will be with us right after this. You're listening to the Garden with Joey and Holly radio show.
Have a garden question? Give Joey and Holly a call now or anytime 24/7. Just dial 1-800-927-SHOW. If you can't get through, leave a message and they will call you back. Call now, 1-800-927-SHOW.
Straight from the farm, fields, and briar patch, Piper and Leaf Artisan Tea is a tea like you've never imagined it. Get our award-winning tea delivered right to your front door and become part of the Piper and Leaf family. Free shipping over $75 at piperandleaf.com.
Is your dog that's causing dead spots in your lawn? Dog urine can burn lawns and ruin the appearance of your lawn very quickly. Fortunately, our friends at Nature's Lawn has a solution for this problem with their Spotless Lawn product. Spotless Lawn's three-way action helps neutralize dog urine, helps move it through the root zone, and then helps the grass recover. If there's still life left in the grass, Spotless Lawn will help resuscitate it. Visit natureslawn.com and look for Spotless Lawn. That's natureslawn.com and look for Spotless Lawn. Soul Brew Kombucha is founded and handcrafted in Milwaukee, 100% organic, formulated for ultimate health and enjoyment. Find out the benefits of drinking kombucha and where to purchase at mysoulbrew.com or find them on Facebook at mysoulbrew. The number one key to healthy, productive plants are the roots. Starting from seed to full-grown plants, rootmaker.com has the answer. From seed starting trays with an innovative design that air prunes the roots, creating a fabulous root system, never again will you have root-bound plants, to multiple gallon grow bag sizes to raised beds. Rootmaker.com has your grow needs covered. Visit rootmaker.com. Use coupon code RADIO21 and get 15% off your entire order. Deer Defeat is an all-natural repellent to keep deer, rabbits, and groundhogs away from your precious plants. Deer Defeat protects your plants day and night, dries clear, and odorless. It will not clog your sprayer. Deer Defeat works for 30 days through rain, snow, and freeze. Safe, effective, and works on rabbits. Money-back guarantee. To purchase, go to deerdefeat.com and use code RADIO to save 10% on your order. Deer Defeat. It can't be beat. The Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show is brought to you by the following: Pro Plugger, Dripworks, Walton's Incorporated, Tree Diaper, Janie's Mill, Phylum Bioproducts, Chapin Manufacturing Incorporated, Nature's Lawn and Garden Incorporated, Deer Defeat, Dr. Jim's, Rootmaker. Find all sponsors at the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com and thank them for their support. Welcome back to the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show. Shirley Bovshow, moments away, but first, you got Japanese beetles flying around your yard. Rescue has a trap that can fix and eliminate the problem.
Yeah, Japanese beetle traps, when used properly, will help draw beetles away from your plants and trees. The trick is to hang them 30 feet from your plants that you want to protect. That way the beetles are drawn away and they won't cause the damage and they are trapped. Rescue Japanese traps are the only traps with a controlled release lure that is welded to the trap and it lasts the entire season. There's an extra large bag, and the Rescue Japanese Beetle Trap is the only trap with a reusable bag, and you just simply open it at the bottom. If it's a tough beetle season, you can empty it, seal it up, and then it'll go on to collect even more Japanese beetles. You can find all of this information and their products at rescue.com. Made in the USA, that's rescue.com.
Holly, let's go to the hotline and bring in our guest for this week.
Shirley Bovshow is a professional garden communicator and award-winning landscape and edible garden designer in Los Angeles. She's appeared as the garden expert for 9 seasons on the 4-time Emmy-nominated TV show Home and Family on the Hallmark Channel, and she's also known online as an Eden maker and as the foodie gardener. Welcome to the program, Shirley.
Hi, Joey and Holly. How are you?
We are doing well. You are a very busy lady, and we thank you for taking time out not only to educate Holly and myself, but all of our listeners across the country.
It's my pleasure. It's my favorite subject.
Well, where we are at in the Midwest, most of our listeners are, we are at the peak of mosquito season. So what are some plants that we can plan to plant that will help the mosquito problem in and around our homes?
Wow. I actually did a very thorough study on mosquitoes and plants and why they even bother us. And you know what's interesting is some of the plants that we use to detract or to repel the mosquito are plants that are really rich in volatile essential oils, the kind that just permeate the air in a warm summer night. And the reason is what's happening is the mosquito can actually detect us from 100 miles away. They can smell our carbon dioxide when we breathe. And so they're very attracted to that. They actually can see us too. But first of all, they smell the carbon dioxide and then they come towards us. So when we have plants near us that have a very strong scent, very strong terpenes, what happens is it will actually cause confusion in the mosquito. They don't know where to go. They can't find that carbon dioxide. And some of these rich plants include, everybody knows, citronella. It's got that lemony type of scent. That's one of the most successful and effective scents that repel mosquitoes. So citronella, you could also go with like maybe a Mexican marigold. Are you guys familiar with the tagetes?
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
It's also really strong. There's catnip, and one of the studies showed that catnip actually has such a strong scent that it's a good natural competitor to DEET. Now, I haven't put it to the test because I'm a little scared to put anything to the test, but I use these. They're all part of my close-up garden in my patio. I have these plants surrounding me and the sitting area. Um, but the thing is, DEET is a very strong chemical that's used, but catnip is supposed to be one of the most potent natural plants, along with basil and any of the mints, the peppermints, and anything that has kind of like a lemon scent, like lemon thyme. And it's just important to have it around. But remember that the most effective repellent is going to be wearing long sleeves, having some type of repellent on, and then this is like a layer. It's like a third layer. And if you put it like around a little flower in your hair, that'll help too.
Well, and having these plants that are naturally repellent or helps repel mosquitoes looks a lot better than having a dozen and a half of those candles that you light whenever you have
That's
company
true.
over.
That's true. And again, it's really what we're doing is we're confusing the poor things. I shouldn't even have such compassion for them, should I? But that's what it is. Their nervous system goes bonkers. It's like, wait a minute, I thought I sensed some carbon dioxide. What happened?
Yeah, I don't know. As a Midwestern, I'm not sure how much compassion I have for mosquitoes.
Hmm. Yeah,
I know.
I've been there.
So I've actually been thinking about getting an orchid, and I know they seem to be sold everywhere now, like here, grocery stores, even gas stations. What are some helpful orchid growing tips and anything to avoid when growing an orchid?
Sure, that's a great question. Orchid happens to be one of my favorite flowering indoor plants. And so the first thing is if you want to be successful growing, and we're talking about an orchid, let's say the Phalaenopsis, because that's what you find usually at the grocery store, at the florist. And start by picking out a very healthy looking one. And one of the things that you want to look for in a healthy and robust orchid is you want to look to see that, first of all, that there's plenty of buds still at the tip of the stem. A lot of times we're attracted to multiple flowers, all these flowers, but there's no buds left. Well, guess what's going to happen? You're going to enjoy that for exactly a few weeks and it's done. But when you realize that the orchid opens the flower buds from the bottom of the stem up, you could always kind of project how much time will this orchid be flowering in my house by how many buds are still not open. And so that's something I always look for. I look then to the roots. I make sure that the roots look nice and green, those aerial roots that are sticking out. If they're gray and shriveled and look a little bit like they've dehydrated, that means that they haven't been watered properly and the plant can be under stress. Be aware that orchids are planted either in orchid bark typically or moss. If you're the type of person who forgets to water your plants, you may want to go for the orchid that has moss because it retains a little more water longer than the orchid bark. But there's a caveat to that. A lot of the times beginners with orchids, they tend to overwater, they saturate that moss, and it really holds on to the water, and it starts to rot out the roots. So be very aware of the planting media. Is it the orchid bark? Is it the moss? And know that the orchid bark is going to dry a little bit sooner. But in either case, what I recommend is when you get it home, you water it once a week. It shouldn't be more than that unless it's super duper hot indoors and you have no type of air conditioning. But I would say once, and make sure that it's thoroughly watered. That's where the water comes out from the bottom. And that is one of the most important things for the health of your plant. The other thing is you want to look at the stem when you're selecting it, and also while you're taking care of it. Make sure that it's nice and sturdy. And you want to look at the leaves. The leaves should be a light green. I don't know if you're aware of that. A lot of people like dark green in plants,
Right.
but dark green means it's getting probably too much sun. And it doesn't want direct sunshine because in nature, this is an understory plant. And it is comfortable with bright light, but indirect light. So don't put it near your window. And look at the leaves. It'll tell you a lot about the health and happiness of your orchid. If it's splitting, if you see like little accordion kind of vents to it, that means it was dehydrated at some point. So pass on that, and also take good care of your orchid so that it doesn't start to look like that also. Those are the most important things. I mean, temperature is really important. An orchid is Phalaenopsis is very comfortable indoors, bright light, and temperatures that we're comfortable with, guys. Anywhere from 65 to maybe 80 at the most. And what really is important, though, if you want to have this orchid blooming for 50 years, not continuously, but these orchids can last that long if you take care of them. What you want is to make sure that the temperatures at night drop about 15 degrees. I mean, this is probably the tip I've given to people that has surprised them the most because they actually try it. And, I'll get feedback maybe a season later. Surely it worked. I got my orchid to rebloom. And that was because it was placed in a room where the temperature drops 15 degrees. It likes a little bit of humidity around it. So if you want to put a few of them together so that, they can breathe on each other, that's a good thing. Or you can supplement with some pebbles with water in a saucer, or maybe put on a humidifier. Those are the essentials. There's a lot more you can do. And actually, I have a video on YouTube that's had, thank God, over 3 million views. And I'll tell you something, Joey and Holly, for you guys are radio experts, audio experts. It's got the worst sound, but people still watch it. So I guess it's got good information.
Yeah, it certainly does. So, a few weeks ago, we talked about how to garden for every body type, every body style. What are some accessible gardening tips and ideas that you have?
Well, it really depends, Holly, on the person and what are the limitations or discomfort that they have in doing your typical gardening chores. But certainly there's a lot of ergonomic and accessible tools out there and materials that we could use so that we can avoid pain. Because who wants pain, right?
Right.
Not when you're gardening. So one of the things that I think is really neat is to use, and you can find these at the hardware store, pulleys for like hanging plants so that you don't have to reach up, you don't have to get a ladder. These pulley systems are, as inexpensive as maybe $15 online to more sophisticated ones that can hold up to 60, 80 pounds. And these pulley systems are real easy. You just pull it down, it kind of self-locks, and it brings the plant to your height so that you can water it and care for it. And then you unlatch it, and then you raise it up again. So I love things that make life easy for us. So pulleys are great for making things more to our height. The other thing is, if you don't feel comfortable bending over or getting on the ground in your knees to dig, I would say get a raised bed a planter or a garden table. They've got these online anywhere from $50 up. They're sophisticated and some of them are simple, but it just depends on what you expect and what you want. But the key is bring that plant her up to your height so you're not bending over and hurting your back. So I love garden tables. The other thing is the tools themselves. There are ergonomic tools, meaning ergonomic in comfort to your body. So you're using the large muscles. So when you're using a pruner, there's the type of pruners that have an ergonomic handle. There are long handled shovels so that you don't have to, and lightweight, that you don't have to, like again, get on the floor and use this small trowel. You can use it from 3 feet away. And they work really well the way it's angled. It's so that you can dig into the ground really, really simple. And look also for telescoping types of poles that are, integrated into the garden tool. So say if you're going to be pruning your butterfly bush, then you can use one of these telescoping pruners. So it makes it really easy, even if it's 15 feet high. So I just say go for comfort, go for things that are practical, things that bring the garden up to your height or bring it down to your eye level. And use tools that are made so that you're using the big muscles, not the small muscles that contribute to carpal tunnel and stuff like that. There's all kinds of stuff out there. So we never really have to stop gardening unless you've got a really serious case.
Definitely, I definitely agree, and I think it is, kind of, you shouldn't have any shame in choosing to use, things that will help you
Absolutely.
enjoy your hobby. So
Right.
we are talking with Shirley Bovshow. She's appeared as the garden expert for 9 seasons, Emmy nominated TV show Home and Family on Hallmark Channel. She's also known as the Eating Maker and Foodie Gardener.
So, can you tell us more about edible landscaping? What is it, and how can one use it?
One of my favorite subjects. As the foodie gardener, I'm all about growing food, but not only plants as food, but plants that offer therapeutic values to us. So we ingest it maybe or we use it on our arms like a salve. Edible landscaping is a great idea because there's so many plants that look great year round. Now you guys are in the Midwest. Depending on your zone, I don't know, how chilly it gets in some areas, but there are plants that look like staples of the garden. They can look great year round, and they also offer some type of fruit. One of my favorites, and now again, if you're in an area that gets frost, you can plant nice miniature or compact Meyer lemon trees, and you can overwinter them indoors. But what I do is I have them planted in the ground in LA, but like I said, those in cold season areas, they can plant them in containers, big containers, and then set them out almost like a hedge. It looks so beautiful, and it brings on all kinds of great pollinators to your garden because they are attracted to the scent, to the beautiful blossoms. It looks beautiful and green. It's got that ornamental and edible fruit on it. And that's one of the ones I love. I also love the leptospermum, which is the Australian tea tree. Beautiful little flowers, look like little tiny hollyhocks. And it's a very drought tolerant plant that grows up to 2 feet tall with beautiful flowers in light pink or dark purple or cranberry colors. Looks like an ornamental bush. To me, as a designer, what I look for in an edible landscape are those plants that produce fruit that have the longest life and showability, that they look good more months than not. Because like if you go through your frost, then some of these plants may be tropical in nature or desert oriented, they may not do well in your area, but there are so many ones out there that you could use. And edible landscaping is even including your nut fruit trees, any of your almonds and any of your apricot trees, cherry trees. these are plants that have so much beauty throughout the year, even when they're naked. And then when the blossoms come on, they're so gorgeous. And then you get the green leaves, you get the beautiful fruit. That's all edible landscaping. I do edible landscaping with a pomegranate in my area. I've got it as a hedge, and it's the Nana, which is the dwarf grower, about 4 feet tall. And so I always say, you can eat your hedge because if it's, got some type of fruit or something in it, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be edible. Artichokes are great. They look like sculptural plants. So many guys would have to take an hour to do that one. But I would just encourage people to, look into plants that look like ornamental plants that, look nice all the time, but they actually have the benefit of either being food for you or some type of fruit that will be beneficial for you.
Fantastic. So you like to encourage people to use every part of the plant possible, especially roses. What are
Oh,
some
yeah.
surprising things that you can do with your roses that you may not think about?
Well, you know what? I don't know that it's surprising, but I think that a lot of people who are looking out the window right now at the rose bush that they have, they may not have considered all of the utility that comes from that plant. And some of the things starting from the stem itself. Okay, so what good is a stem after the flower fades? Well, it's perfect for creating another rose plant. So I love to use stem cuttings from a rose to create a new plant. Now, if it's a hybrid, then it will come true when it comes from a cutting, not so much from the seed, but you can use it for that. I've also used stems that I've dried, and they still look nice and green, and I trellis them with some hemp string and make little types of trellises for my garden plants, for my potted plants. So I use the stem. As far as the fresh roses, well, obviously you can cut them and make an arrangement with it, but let's have some fun. Take that beautiful unblemished rose flower and press it, dry it and press it, and use it as a pressed art. You can put it onto your candles, you can make a beautiful card with it, all types of things by drying and pressing it. You can dip roses in wax and you can preserve them. They stay nice for about 3 or 4 months. Beautiful. If you've never seen, I don't know if you guys have seen waxed roses. They're so beautiful and they're fun during the holiday times. The other thing is everybody knows to hang them and dry them, the traditional way. And I love that too. But let's go on to the petals. What can you do with the petals? Petals are edible and they are great for crafting. So one of the things that I like to do, and I've done this before, is I've used the petals to make a distilled rose water. And I didn't have anything fancy, no distillation system, just, a pot with water, a double pot with water. And I did some distilling of the rose petals. And also it could be used, a rose petal can be used for flavoring. A lot of the Persian or Indian cuisines. I don't know if you guys have tried rose water. Have you ever tasted it?
Yeah, I have.
It's kind of neat. I mean, they use it in ice creams and in syrups for their drinks and for their desserts, and so the petals are used for that. The petals are used to also to color as a natural colorant, and when they're dried, these petals, of course, make potpourri. But the other thing that's really popular these days is to take your dried rose petals, chop them up really small, and make confetti.
Huh.
And that's really fun because they cost a lot of money on Etsy. If you go there, you'll see. You're like, oh my God, I'm gonna make my own confetti.
Well,
It's too
and like if you throw it at a wedding or whatever, it's naturally
Yeah,
biodegradable.
there you go. I love it. That's exactly right. And of course, use these same dried petals. You can use them in bath salts. You can use them in, a scrub, a sugar scrub. And then, okay, if I haven't said enough about what you can use the rose for, let's get to the rose hips. That's when it's dead, okay? So the rose never really dies in utility because even in its death, it has function. So the rose hip, that beautiful plumped seed pod that is left over, and by the way, I would encourage your listeners, if you love to feed the birds, Keep those rose hips. Let them form in the fall. Don't cut them off. A lot of times, we may want to deadhead things to make it look neater, but they're so beautiful. They're orange. Sometimes they're purple. Sometimes they're red. Some are big. Some are small. But they're filled with seeds, which is next season's life, if we choose to harvest them and plant them. But the rose hip itself can be dried, used to make tea, chopped up. But the most important thing, though, if you're going to use it edibly, is to open it up and remove the seeds, because I don't know if you've noticed, but they're kind of they've got little thorns, little prickles, and I wouldn't want that, to be swallowing something like that. So just be very careful, but it's filled with vitamin C. It's touted as an anti-inflammatory. It's got great flavor. And they say that it's even better when you wait to the first frost before you harvest it. Now, I'm still waiting for my first frost in LA. It hasn't come yet. But you guys are prime for enjoying rose hips when they are best, and that's after a frost.
Well, we really appreciate all of the great information and having you on the show.
Well, I had fun, and I hope I didn't talk too much.
No, not at all.
Good. So
I like to talk, let you guys answer back.
Right, we really appreciate it. So I just want to remind everybody to follow Shirley online on her Facebook page, Eat and Maker by Shirley Bovshow, on Instagram, and her YouTube channel as the same name. Shirley has a 100% reply rate on all gardening questions in English and Spanish. Thanks again for being with us.
You got it, guys.
Yes, thank you. And when we come back, it's going to be about your garden questions, our garden answers. You're listening to the Garden with Joy and Holly radio show.
Got a question for Joey and Holly? Send it via email anytime to gardentalkradio@gmail.com.
Do you want to transform your kitchen waste into a valuable soil amendment? Cousins Compost offers a variety of composting supplies. Cousins Compost's Royal Worm Bedding is designed to produce excellent worm castings. Use coupon code REDWORM21 for 10% off at cousinscompost.com.
Protect your plants against damage with the 3-in-1 Plant Guard and Special Blend Fertilizer. Visit ivorganics.com.
You move your lawn sprinklers all over the yard, but you always end up putting them in the same spots. Why not just bury them there? Out of sight, always ready to use, pre-adjusted to water the precise areas you want. Quick Snap Sprinklers makes it easy. In-ground sprinklers without the hassle or expense of laying pipe. Put the sprinklers anywhere in your lawn or garden. Snap on a hose to supply the water. Water on, it pops up. Water off, it drops below ground. You can mow right over it. You can have a buried sprinkler system up and running in just minutes. Each Quick Snap saves thousands of dollars. They install in minutes and operate for years. Visit quicksnapsprinkler.com.
Pomona's Universal Pectin is a high-quality pectin that gels reliably with low amounts of any sweetener. If you're trying to reduce the amount of sugar in your diet, you'll love Pomona's Universal Pectin. Now you can make healthy homemade jams and jellies sweetened to your taste. You can use sugar or honey to sweeten. Pomona's Universal Pectin keeps indefinitely when stored in an airtight container. Easy to use, versatile, and comes with directions and recipes in every box. Find out more and where to buy at PomonaPectin.com. Also available at natural food stores and online.
The Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show is brought to you by the following: Blue Ribbon Organics, Naturally Green Products, Ironwood Tool Company, Easy Step Products, Rinse Kit, Soul Brew Kombucha, Wild Delight, Rykon Vitova, Chip Drop, BaleBuster.com. Find all sponsors at the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com and thank them for their support. Welcome back to the Garden with Joy and Holly radio show. Thank you for allowing us to be part of your world today. You got a question and answer time. You can submit that a couple of ways by going to your email box and sending it to gardentalkradio@gmail.com. That's gardentalkradio@gmail.com. Or if you'd like to talk to us, you can do that at 1-800-927-SHOW. That's 1-800-927-7469. If we can't get to you, leave a message and we will get back with get your answer answered. Had a number of questions come in this week. Holly, well, a number of them are canning, as you talked talked about in the second segment there. We're going to see what we can get through. I have canned tomatoes, and I have lost about 2 to 3 inches of liquid in each jar. What did I do wrong?
Well, sometimes when you're canning anything with liquid, this does occur, but you want to make sure you're canning at the proper process for your height above sea level. A lot of times that causes an issue. Another issue is just making sure that your jars, your lids are on tight enough. I know we say don't, put them on like you're the Hulk, but definitely make sure they are tight enough because some liquid can escape during canning. And that's normal. So just things like that. Make sure you are following the proper process. It does happen. It's going to happen.
All right, next question. Another person wrote in about, I canned tomatoes and I packed the jars as full as I could as the instructions told me to from Ball. Once they came out of the canner, they had about 2 inches of water or liquid at the base of the jar. The tomatoes had floated up. What happened? Why did they float when I packed them in so tight?
It's a thing. Fruit floats.
It's a thing. Science, yeah. It's a thing.
Yeah, it's just how it works. Fruit floats. Tomatoes are fruit. It's just going to happen.
Does that have more to do in some aspects to it was overripe or underripe, or does that have anything to do with the floatiness of the fruit?
Typically not. It's just how it happens. The floatiness of the fruit. That's a word.
Floatiness of the fruit.
Science, yeah.
Right. I accidentally cut a spaghetti squash that was still green and soft white. And I accidentally dropped it, and the skin peeled off there. It's immature. Can I still eat it, or should I just toss it in the compost and wait for another one to grow?
You can eat it. It might not taste like a spaghetti squash, but you could experiment with cooking it. There's nothing wrong with eating underripe squash.
No, it just may not have that punch or pizzazz that you would expect it to. So that's just one of those things. And you might have one of those pumpkin zucchini squashes where it's crossed because they're all in the same family. I've seen a lot of images on Facebook where it's supposed to be a spaghetti squash, but it has the pumpkin zucchini skin texture to it. And we've had a couple of those in the past where we grew spaghetti squash, but when we harvested it and cut it open, it was a pumpkin basically had cross-pollinated. So that is a common thing. It wasn't that tasty, but it is a common thing. What's our next question, Holly?
My onions went through the whole process, the whole cycle, and then started dropping their seeds on their own before I collected them. Can they still be saved and planted next year without the manual drying process? I would like to think so, but that's probably not how it happens in the wild.
So if the onion is going to seed, whether it's the first year because of stress or you planted a plant, the little bulblets, and it's thinking it's in its second year, onions are biennial, so they're going to go to seed, and this would be exactly the same for leeks as well. You can save those seeds before they drop on the ground. I'm not quite certain of what the question is directing towards. If if she or he is asking if I let them be, will they seed themselves? That can potentially happen because obviously onions naturally seed themselves in the wild or in nature. However, if you can start them indoors and save the seeds, you're guaranteed you're going to get a much healthier, better plant start. Doing it that way. So I don't know if we've answered the question, but we've given information in regards to it. All right. Next question. Wait, have I missed something? I just bought a bunch of 64-ounce jars to can pinto beans in. Why is this not safe? We touched on it slightly in the segment 2 of the program, but again, we've got a little more time here. Why is it not safe to can in 64-ounce or half-gallon mason jars, Holly, whenever Ball makes half-gallon mason jars?
That's a lot of pinto beans. So you want to...
Some people like pinto beans.
No, I'm not. That's no judgment. I'm just saying that's a lot of pinto beans. So it's essentially because, especially when it comes to pinto beans, those are dense, and it's not going to get through to the center of the jar, essentially. The heat, the process, all that when it's a 64-ounce jar, so it's not safe. That's why you can only safely can grape juice and apple juice in the half-gallon jars.
Now, when you mean the internal center portion of that jar, there's not enough every heat, pressure, all that to safely preserve those beans or whatever else you're canning. Now, many of our grandparents and maybe some of you who are listening remember canning almost everything in half-gallon jars. Like the saying is, different time, different era, different decade, things have, I guess it wasn't safe back then, but nobody knew it wasn't safe back then.
Yeah, like maybe Uncle Bob dropped dead for no reason, and it could have been botulism.
Right.
Right.
But so that, that's why, people can for years in half gallon, but science has shown in ball canning this is not safe anymore. Only the two things. So with that being said, we are out of time, and we thank you for yours. Did you miss any portion of the show today or want to revisit it? You can certainly do that by going to your favorite search engine and typing in, or your favorite podcast platform, the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show, or we can make it easy for you, and you can send us an email to gardentalkradio@gmail.com, and we will send you the copy of this show via podcast. Tune in next week as we will talk about tree planting. Do you need to do it? Do you not need to do it? The goods and the bads, as well as fall lawn maintenance. And our guest will be author James McCarroll will be with us, and we'll answer all of your garden questions. So until next week, for
Holly Baird,
I'm Joy Baird, and we will see you in the garden.